Hello, this is Joseph McCarthy of the Irish Abroad Football Statistics website. Welcome to the fourth episode in our series of programming tutorials framed around football statistics for the Republic of Ireland senior men's team. In this episode, I'm only going to look at one statistic, that following his start against France on Monday 27th of March 2023, Evan Ferguson is the third youngest player to start a competitive international for the Republic. However, instead of just looking at developing a program to show this in nodeJS, as in previous episodes, I'm going to split this episode into three parts and develop a program to show the stat in nodeJS, in NoSQL database MongoDB, and in NewSQL database SurrealDB. As always, before you start, make sure you've pulled or cloned the latest code from GitHub and run npm install to install the correct version of the dependency libraries needed to execute the code. Let's get started with nodeJS. I'm going to follow a similar pattern as in previous episodes. That is, start with a solution for a single player by first getting their starts for Ireland, then filtering competitive games and using the date attribute from their first start along with their date of birth to calculate their age in that game. Once a solution to get the age of a player on the first competitive start is complete, we can expand it to all players, then sort from youngest to oldest to show Ferguson a third in the all-time list. Let's continue using Robbie Keane as the guinea pig for these programs. First, require the players library and get the player object for the retired captain by using his player ID. I've done this enough times now that I know his ID off the top of my head. It's 369, but you can use the ID of any player object from the player JSON file if you want. Next, add the games library and use the getPlayerStarts function to create an array of games where Robbie Keane was named in the starting 11. We're only interested in competitive games, so add the levels library and add a filter to the getPlayerStarts call to filter games where the relevant level is competitive. Robbie's first competitive start will be the first item in the competitive starts array, so assign that to a variable to work with for the rest of the program. To get the player's age on that date, add the utils library and convert both the date of birth attribute of the player object and the date attribute of the game object to nodeJS objects using the toDayJS function from the library. Then use the nodeJS diff function to calculate the difference between the date of the game and the day he was born, i.e. the player's age. For greater accuracy, add day as a parameter to the diff function to calculate the value in days, as was discussed in the last tutorial. Now that Robbie's age on the date of his first competitive start has been calculated, add the countries library to get the name of the home and away teams and log all the details to the console. Running the script from the command line, we can see that Robbie Keane was 6,633 days old, or 18 years and 59 days, on his first competitive start, which came against Croatia in September 1998. Let's expand this to calculate the age of every player on their first competitive start. Replace the player object with an array containing all players using the getAllPlayers function from the players library. We're going to iterate through this array to calculate the age of each player on their first competitive start. Next, create a function that takes a player object as a parameter and refactor the existing code to return an object with the details needed for the log. Use the array.map function to create a new array with the details of each player's first competitive start, and replace the existing console.log call with console.table. If you execute the program now, it fails. This is because some players have yet to make a competitive start, so the competitive starts array on line 10 is empty, meaning the first competitive start variable is undefined, and creating a nodeJS object on line 14 is failing. Add a check for an empty array on line 13 and refactor the rest of the function into the body of the if statement. I'm a fan of only having a single return statement in a function, so create a new undefined variable called retval for the return value and assign the object to be returned to it, then return this value. If the player being processed has not started a competitive game yet, the function will return an undefined object, so add a filter for this after the call to the allplayers.map function. Run the program again and you can see the table of players and the age they were on the first competitive start. However, if you scroll up, you'll see that some ages are calculated as NaN, or not a number. These are players whose date of birth is not available, so the object representing them has no date of birth attribute. These players can be removed by adding a filter for objects with the attribute to the allplayers.map chain. Running the program now and scrolling up, you can see that only players with their date of birth defined have their details in the table. Finally, let's sort the table by the age attribute and limit the final results to the top 20 by slicing the results array from the first index for 20 items. As you can see in the final table, at 6,733 days, or 18 years and 159 days, Evan Ferguson is the third youngest player to start a competitive game for the Republic of Ireland, behind Robbie Keane, who was 6,633 days, or 18 years and 59 days, against Croatia in September 1998, and Kevin O'Flanagan, who was 6,725 days, or 18 years and 150 days, when he started against Norway in September 1937 and marked the occasion with a goal. In the next chapter of this episode, I'm going to look at generating the same stat using NoSQL database MongoDB. So make sure you're subscribed for it.